You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. Okay, listeners, welcome back to the newest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Jim Simon, the founder over at JiMMYBAR. So Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
It's our pleasure. We're excited to have you on today. Really just giving an overview on what is JiMMYBAR.
We are a 10-year-old family business. I started with my sister back in 2014. We've gone through a couple different iterations, but kind of the premise of it is we want to start a family business. I was in technology, mostly doing startups. This is the sixth company I've started or ran. And she, also an entrepreneur, was a restaurateur and a chef in Chicago. Her husband, restaurateur and chef from Naples, Italy. So we're like, let's do something in food because I've wanted to do something in food. My previous gigs were in data, which is super boring, although profitable. And so we wanted to do something with a tangible product. Originally, it was going to be like healthy ice cream, which I love. Somehow we decided on bars, but we wanted to be a full platform of better for you products, right? Because most better for you products, especially back 10 years ago, didn't taste very good. They still don't taste great, although they're getting better. So we settled on bars, and then we sent out an email to everybody in our family saying, what should we call our new adventure? And my niece said, who calls me Uncle Dummy, said, call it the Uncle Dummy Bar. And I thought, that's funny, actually. I kind of like that. But I don't know if I want to be known as Uncle Dummy. She goes, just call it JiMMYBAR or the JiMMYBAR Company. So that's what we just settled on, and it sounded very all-American. So that's what we went with. But we didn't know anything about CPG. Now, she knew the food business from the restaurant side. I didn't know anything about the food business. So, meeting one was at Jewel, which is our local grocery chain in Chicago, where we started the business. They said, yep, we like the bar. You can come in, and slotting fee is $30,000, and you got to go through this distributor, and that's another $50,000, all sort of the ugly side of CPG that most people don't know about. And then just literally that day, first call, I'm like, we got to do something else because we're not going to make enough money in grocery. Grocery is the most expensive channel, at least in the States, to go through. Let's take a different path. And so that was sort of the beginning of everything we've done in JiMMYBAR has been different than the norm. So what we did, our go-to-market from year 1 through 4 was food service, hearkening back to my previous life, which was working with companies, doing deals with companies like Google or Facebook or Uber or Oracle, whatever, all in Silicon Valley. And all of them had really cool, what are called micro kitchens, which are just, it's a fancy word for a cafeteria, but it's places where the workers, because a lot of these places have 24-hour buildings, go get their coffee, their chips, their soda, their whatever, but it's not Doritos and Cheetos and Coke. It's cooler brands, better for you brands. And that's where I saw JiMMYBAR playing. So that was our go-to-market. We just sold directly to the Facebooks and the Ubers and the Oracles. Very different. I don't really know anybody else who did it that way. Built $1 million in sales profitably, which is also unusual for CPG. And then about year 3.5, we were using co-packers, which is in our world, that's you hire a company to make your product, right? So JiMMYBARs at that time did not make JiMMYBARs. We hired a company to manufacture because manufacturing is expensive. But my sister had been kind of pitching me from day one, let's run our own stuff. Let's control our supply chain. Let's buy peanuts from a peanut company. Let's have a relationship with the chocolate company that we're working with. And so that's what we did. We started a little co-packer, and it's grown dramatically. Started with, I think, 3,000 square feet. Now we've got 40,000 square feet, and we own the building. We bought the building last year. So again, we've tried to control our own destiny. Along those lines, we did not go out and do what also is normal, which is go out and get institutional money. Consumer packaged goods is very expensive. It's a capital pig. Any company you see on the aisle, they didn't start with a $5,000 loan from mom and dad, even though a lot of them say they did. They went out and got millions, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to build this brand. For us, we didn't do that, which we went out, we have friends and family. I self-funded the company until I couldn't anymore. And then we went out and hit up friends for 100 grand or 50 grand or 20 grand or whatever. And we managed to raise about 3.8 million, which is very, very small for a company of our size, that at the end of this year, we'll probably have sold about $80 million. Positives and negatives to that for anybody watching this is positives is our cap table is really clean. Like our cap table is in really good shape. I still own a big percentage of the company. Negatives is that you're operating and you're being cash starved, right? So you can't go out and hire that badass director of marketing who comes with a big price tag. You can't do an ad on YouTube and spend $200,000 for a clever ad. You just can't do that. So we've built this thing to be profitable from day one. I think out of 10 years, maybe 6 years, 6.5, 7 years have been profitable, which is good. But it does come with its own sort of pain. So we've done everything very differently. Along like COVID 2020, or just before COVID, actually, about 2017, our bars switched from being date-based bars. We didn't feel like the world needed date-based bars anymore. We went to high protein, low sugar. And all the growth in the market is people trying to get protein with low sugar. So we pivoted a little bit, high protein, low sugar, and then doubled down on that with functionality. So we're known as the functional bars. All our bars have functional ingredients above and beyond protein, right? So they might have MCT and omega-3 and plant-based caffeine for brain health, mental health, as well as energy and pre-workout. They all work together. You feel good, you work out. You don't feel good, you don't work out. We've got a bar called the Eye of the Tiger bar, which has turmeric for recovery when you work out your muscles. It helps it recover. And then 2 bars for weight loss. Our keto bars, 3 bars for immune health, which have 300% of your vitamin C, called the immune bars, which are now in American and United Airlines. So every bar serves a purpose. It's kind of like that old ad for Apple Computer. We have an app for that. We have an app for that. So we got a bar for that. And now this year, we're coming out with non-bars, which we're pretty excited about because we don't want to be known as just a bar company. So we're going to come out with a bunch of different lines of products. We're coming out with the Rice Krispie treats that are lower sugar than the national brand, no artificial colors like the national brand, et cetera, and lower calorie. That will launch here soon. And then we're going to come up with a whole bunch of other stuff that's pretty cool.
Jim, that was phenomenal. That was probably the best overview that a guest has given on the show so far. So thank you for all that. I want to jump in with a bunch of
rehearsed. Well rehearsed, because every time I have to give them the whole family pitch.
So ton of follow-up questions that came out of that overview. Yep. I want to start out with corporate pantries, because you had mentioned, this is one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on, is my over-summarized or oversimplified explanation of what's been so cool about JiMMYBAR. You guys took a very atypical approach, as you said, with CPG. You didn't go the grocer route, you went corporate pantry, and then you really scaled from there. Let's start out with corporate pantry. You mentioned you were able to get into like the Facebooks, Googles, you name it. How did you actually get your foot in the door to get those first couple of sales, maybe to get that first business to say, hey, yeah, we'll stack JiMMYBARs in here. This sounds like it'll be a great option.
So long story short, in the sales world, there are hunters and what we call farmers, right? So the hunters are the guys or gals who spend their life on LinkedIn, Googling, investigating, like who is the pantry buyer for Oracle in Santa Rosa? I'm just making that up, right? And that's what I personally enjoy doing. So I would go on LinkedIn, I'd sniff around and find out who the buyer is. I'd call the buyer, email the buyer, LinkedIn the buyer, and go see them. And because they're not a grocery buyer that's getting bombarded by every brand on planet Earth, they're apt to see you, right? Because they don't get a lot of love from most of the brands. So that's what I did. I just cold call, dial for dollars, and found out who the buyer is. It's not easy, but I kind of like doing it. From there, you go through distributors. I always try to avoid distributors if I can. Everything we try to do is direct. I try to avoid middlemen everywhere I can. Sometimes you can't. But 10 years ago when we started the company, you could walk into Facebook or you could walk into Google and I tell them our story is a good one. I'm a former tech guy. Our bar tastes good, blah, blah, blah. And they would let us in. And it's not going to be $1 million POs or anything, but it's good, steady business and a nice profit. And they're cool people to work with. And you're not about being evaluated every 10 minutes and they're not have their hand in your pocket constantly like a lot of chains. It was really good business. And then from there, the first retailers we started calling on were, again, we took a very different approach. We went into convenience stores. Convenience stores, I know in Europe, certainly, and in the States are kind of also the path less traveled. They don't get the love that Whole Foods or Sprouts gets. You walk in, you see a lot of Slim Jims. You see a lot of stuffed hot dogs that have been rotating for the past 4 hours. They could use some healthier shit, right? So it's like, we are like, let's go there. And again, that caters to more of a hunter's mentality because there is no one definitive Costco of convenience stores, right? There's lots of small chains. And so it caters to what me and my VP of sales like to do. We like to be out in the street, pounding the pavement. So we got a lot of convenience store business. And then from there, we started hitting up mass, Walmart, Target, Costco, folks like that.
So that approach, worked, it sounds like extremely well for you and the team from 2014 through today in terms of getting into those stores to begin with. From your perspective, would that approach still work today in 2024, brand new CPG brand?
Yeah, great question. Food service is not as clean as it used to be. Unfortunately, it's got a bunch of middlemen with their hands in your pockets. You can still do it. We're trying to get a lot of our food service business back. Like during COVID, as you can imagine, office pantry and convenience stores, like who was hit harder than that? No one's going to work and no one's driving. So like you got to sell your stuff elsewhere. We doubled down heavy on Amazon. We've got a nice Amazon business and it's about to get a lot better. But would it work? Yeah, I tell entrepreneurs that if I'm mentoring, there are a handful of retailers you just don't go in. I hate pharmacies. They're not easy guys to work with, right? And we know who they are. I don't want to bash anybody, but you're not going to make any money. There's a lot of grocery chains who use a couple of the natural distributors here in the States. You can't make money, right? So if you want to lose money, go in there. Good luck to you, but you can't make money. There are some retailers that you can make money. So those are the ones we like to work with. We also like private label. So during COVID, when the world was going to hell, we got a couple really neat opportunities to do private label. Everyone's watching their dollar. Everyone's worried about money. It's just a weird time in the world. So again, because we are not beholden to venture capital or private equity, and I don't have a boss, my investors are super, super cool and patient with me. I said, hey, why don't we do private label? It's predictable. It's big. We own our own co-packer. I don't have to spend an exorbitant amount building the JiMMYBAR brand. We can use this as a way to crank out the revenue. And so we got heavy into private label and we really like that business a lot. It's not for everybody, but for us, since we own our own manufacturing plant, that's what we do. My suggestions for entrepreneurs, stay away from the few retailers where you can't make money. Basically, those are the natural retailers, natural in the States, can't make money. So just stay away and be very, very careful of your larger grocery chains. See if you can stick to regional. Also, a very different approach. What we've done is think globally. So yes, go call in if you're in Iowa, call in Hy-Vee. If you're in Chicago, call in Jewel if you want to. Call in whoever you want, but make damn sure you can make money. Make damn sure you understand the contract. CPG is a very dirty business. Out of the 4 industries I've been in, which is commercial real estate, technology, printing and paper, and CPG, this is the dirtiest. It's not the hardest to understand. You just have a lot of people. There hasn't been disruption technology-wise. If you look at in technology, what did they disrupt for stockbrokers, right? Everyone trades online. They don't use stockbrokers anymore, and then travel. No one uses travel agents. I don't even know if they exist anymore. They go right to Expedia, which is kind of a travel agent of its own. Food hasn't happened that way. So a lot of retailers still go through distributors, which baffles me. But I would just tell entrepreneurs, sell direct any way you can, sell direct. And also go big early, think globally. Don't just focus on the Midwest, or if you're based in Texas, don't focus on the Southwest. Call Costco China, call Sam's in Mexico. Think globally. You'll find some cool little pieces of business that are not in your backyard that don't have 8,000 other jerky companies or bar companies or sports drinks calling on them.
I want to dive into co-packers next, though, because you had mentioned you and your sister started out working with co-packers. The sense I got is that you feel very strongly that it was the right long-term decision to move away from co-packers over time. At what stage do you think CPG brands should start moving away from co-packers and look to start taking everything in-house?
Yeah, I think there's 2 pieces to that question, Pat. And that is how much money you're going to raise. And that's something I haven't brought up. And that is, if you're going to build a brand, you better go get some money. So even before you want to start Pat's Jerky or whatever, Pat's Oatmeal, get money. Because if you don't have money, it's too hard of a business and there's plenty of other ways to make a living, right? If you have money and you have the ability to start a co-packer, I would say do it probably second year. Your first year, you want to make sure you even have anything. So the reason why I didn't want to start a co-packer, even though pretty early on we got traction, I think we did like $600K our first year, which is decent for a tiny little company. But my sister was bugging me from day one, like, let's make it ourselves. but she had 40 years in food production. She used to joke like, she owned an Italian restaurant and her husband's a chef. And so she's like, I've been making ossobuco and homemade pasta for 40 years. A protein bar doesn't scare me a whole lot. It's a protein bar, right? I've been making much more complex stuff every single day, but I haven't. That's what made me nervous. I don't understand. I'm not mechanical whatsoever. And these machines are very big and very expensive to make protein bars. So you're diving into the world you don't know. And I sure as hell don't want to be taken off the road calling on retailers or Amazon, and my hands are full of peanut butter. So I was fortunate that my partner can do that end of the business. To an aspiring entrepreneur, I would say raise money from day one and raise a lot. Whatever you think you need, trust me, you need 3 times more. If you do have something and you're on to a good thing, you start a jerky company and it's starting to roll a little bit. You do $1 million your first year. You don't make money, but you've got a path, right? I would look at starting a co-packer in year 2 or 3. I really would, because what happens is you've got kind of a lot of the retailers who have their hands in your pockets. You've got the distributors who have their hands in your pockets. If you use brokers and you don't have a good broker, I'm lucky I've got great ones, their hands are in your pockets. Your co-packer has their hands in your pocket. We had 5 co-packers in 4 years and everyone ended in a bad divorce. So everyone's got their hand in your pocket. You better fucking control something. And you better control your supply chain. If you don't control your supply chain, you don't have a business. You've got a brand, but who cares?
And I love that. I mean, even the idea of saying, hey, year 1, really make sure that you have a product that people want. To your point, Pat's Beef Jerky, which as a sidebar, I would love to start that business someday. That'd be my dream. But sit down year 1 and say, hey, let's make sure people actually want this thing that I'm pouring my heart and soul into. I love that though, saying, hey, long-term, raise the money that you need in order to start your own and ultimately take it in-house from there.
Yeah. And I would also say, Pat, keep your day job. You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
Keep your day job in year 1. So I kept my day job for like 6 months or something. And then I'm like, okay, I think I have something, but I didn't go out and get funding, which was a mistake. So I used my own capital, used it up. And then I went out and hit up my friends, and I'm lucky I've got very cool friends and 100K here and 50K here and all that kind of stuff. What I should have done is gone out and get $5 million and really gone, full blast. Like everything we do at JiMMYBAR is very fast and we move at a certain pace. It's not for everyone, but we move very fast. I think on the money front, I sort of pissed around with not having enough capital, which is common. We use debt instead of equity, which year 10 is awesome because I still own a big chunk of the company, whereas most founders of my size probably own 10% of the company because they've done so many raises. I own more. However, that comes with a lot of pain. You know what I mean? Explaining to my wife, like, she works for the company now, and I was explaining how it works. I said, on paper, we're in really good shape. In reality, we're eating at McDonald's tonight. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's the entrepreneurs. Every entrepreneur knows exactly what I'm talking about right now. But you got to raise money. You have to control your own supply chain. And also build a company, build a profitable company. Don't build a brand. I know everyone says building a brand. I think it's bullshit. Build a company that's profitable. You have to have a path to profitability. Because if you lose money every year, unless you're Amazon, who lost money for the first 20 years, but Bezos had this global plan and investors bought into it, and he's a brilliant guy. And so he built this monopoly, essentially, this juggernaut that no one can compete with, and it's changed the world. Unless you got that in mind, if you're just talking about a bar, a jerky company, or the 8,000 sports soda out there, you better make sure you've got money, and you better make sure you build it to profitability.
Man, I love it. What a great way to wrap up. I know we're coming up on time here, but I love everything you said. I love the fact that you took the bootstrap route, largely took the bootstrap route, especially in the early days, and are really saying, hey, if you're going CPG, raise money, it's going to be a lot less stressful. You're going to be way happier in the long term, and it's not going to inhibit your growth nearly as much. Jim, for the listeners that want to get in touch with you and really want to learn more about JiMMYBAR, where's the best place for them to go to either get in touch with you or get in touch with the company and learn more?
Jim@jimmybars.com. Took me forever to come up with that email. It's a tough one. Well, thank you, Pat. Thank you so much. That was really fun. Sorry I did all the talking. Let's talk again.
Definitely. Jim, it was a pleasure having you on today. Everyone, this is Jim Simon over at JiMMYBAR. Jim, thanks for coming on. It was great having you today. Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.